This episode of the BJJ Campaign Podcast is brought to you by Speed Pro East Bay in Alameda, California, in the heart of the San Francisco Bay Area. They're the source for premium visual solutions to spruce up your interior space. From window decals and wall murals to conference room graphics and directional signage, create a work environment that is tailored to your brand. They'll not only print your custom graphics, but do installation as well. Visit eastbayspeedpro.com. That's EASTBAYSPEEDPRO.com. And mention the BJJ Campaign Podcast for 15% off your first order. Also, Eddie is a jiu-jitsu guy, so folks go out there and support him.
I'm about to feed him to the sharks right now. Get him hype right now. Yeah. You know the ground is our ocean. Yeah. Ocean. Everybody that trains, you know the game. Yeah. So let's get it. Slap it up, bump it, and roll. Hey. Yeah, that's the way that it goes. Ain't no better way to better yourself in this game. You're feeling the growth. That's time on the mat. We put in the work. Believe it ain't easy, I know. But we train for the love of the game, the love of the art. Now slap it up, bump it, let's roll.
Welcome to episode 50 of the BJJ Campaign Podcast. My name is Jeff Boone. I'm an A3 blue belt, 2 stripes.
Phil Kors, A2, blue belt, 1 stripe.
AJ Clingerman, W2, purple belt, 1 stripe.
James Clingerman, A2, black belt, 3 stripes.
So we were just talking a minute ago because I was thinking about the introduction, and I was like, James hasn't even gotten a single stripe since he was on the podcast last.
That is true. I have made no
Neither have I.
So then I realized I have no idea how it works. How do the degrees work for a black belt?
So actually somebody at the cafeteria last night asked about the same thing. Really, like black belt's it, right? Like even with the coral belts and the red belts, it's all considered degrees of black belt. So black belt degrees are just time in basically, right? So like you get your black belt, 3 years later, you get your first degree, 3 years later, second, 3 years later, third, 5 years later, fourth, 5 years later, fifth. And then I believe it goes up to like 7 and then at some point 13 in between stripes.
Wow.
So I've had my black for 12 years coming up in like 2 months.
Interesting.
So you're at the 333.5 now.
Yeah. So 2 more years, I'll be a 4th degree.
Okay.
And you know, like obviously somebody could get their black belt, never train again, and technically just kind of hang out and chill and, you know, get promoted.
Yeah.
You know, me personally, I do jiu-jitsu. So, you know, like I'm constantly trying to learn. I'm constantly training. I'm still competing, you know, so I feel like I have to be on the mat doing things, continually improving in order to deserve to get that stripe when it comes along, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. And on those lines, you know, you are always doing jiu-jitsu. That's what we love about you guys. And so I'd like to hear from both of you the secret to longevity. Obviously, I'm as an older grappler myself, you know, I'm very conscious of how I train, what supplements I use, what I put in my body as fuel, those types of things. What are some of your tips and tricks, and maybe even what are some of the things that you would recommend not to do that you've made mistakes in the past with?
Oh man, my whole jiu-jitsu training has been nothing but mistakes. Just go hard, no recovery ever. Every day porrada. No, so like AJ and I, we eat pretty clean. Like we very rarely eat red meat. You know, we don't really do dairy. We don't drink alcohol at all. Like, you know, no drugs or anything like that. Lots of water. Water is way more important than people give it credit for. But something we've kind of recently started doing is slowly integrating yoga, like a lot of stretching. And then, you know, hopefully we'll be doing more yoga. Just it's time consuming. I don't like stretching. It hurts. I don't like lifting. It's heavy. So those are the 2 things that are really missing from like my personal training, as far as all that goes. Like lifting is good for, you know, preventative, like maintenance is good for recovery. The same with stretching. Like the more flexible you are, the less likely you are to tear something or get hurt. And then also when you're sore and stiff and you need to bend down and touch your toes, but you can't, like you should try, because stretching is good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also noticed you guys have been incorporating sauna into it. I think that's a good recovery tool as well with heat shock proteins and all that.
We have a sauna in our basement, and it's amazing.
Yes, we're very fortunate there, so we can jump in the sauna whenever.
So yeah, we've got Aaron out here at camp, the Florida Iceman, and he keeps trying to get me to jump in ice, and I am so insanely like cold sensitive. Like it's like if it's below 75 degrees, like I am freezing. I hate ice. Like it makes me want to kill people. I told somebody the other day it made me want to shoot babies, and AJ won't let me say it anymore. But like I don't like ice at all.
So you're avoiding an uncomfortable situation. That seems kind of odd for somebody who's so good at jiu-jitsu.
Getting hit by a semi truck is also uncomfortable, and I avoid that at all costs.
But there's no benefit to getting hit by a semi truck.
Have you tried it?
No, I haven't.
Research shows.
I haven't.
Show me some statistics.
We did have Aaron up for our team training, and we did ice baths then and everything. And we are going to do one. I am
going to do it. Yeah.
Whoa, wait! You guys are going to do one today because Phil
is not going to do it today.
Phil's going to do it too.
An ice bath.
I'm right with James on this. Yeah, I'll do it with James.
Okay.
As soon as James does it.
Deal.
Just kidding, because he might be messing with me. I'm not even going to commit to that. It's not happening.
Yes. You already did
got to. Now you've already said it.
You've
already said it. We will film it. We will put it on our Instagram, folks.
All right.
All right. If Phil does it, I'll do it. How's that?
No.
No, that's not how it works. That's not how it is.
Jeff, what just happened?
You and I are doing the ice bath.
We will
today.
watch. I'll drink the hot coffee while you get in the ice.
So we do take supplements. We do the krill and joint warfare. We take turmeric. We do extra fish oil too. So we do take some supplements, and then we do some other stuff like, we make sure to see a chiropractor. We have an amazing chiropractor, an amazing massage therapist. We do a little cryo, acupuncture. So we do, especially like if we're competition training, we up the cryo and acupuncture and stuff like that.
So you do cryo?
Yeah. Cryo's nowhere, like I don't like it. I don't like it at all, but it's nowhere near.
That's what I keep asking about. I would try that.
Yeah. It's nowhere near as painful as the ice bath. Like we had Aaron up for our team training. So we took 2 pools, like 2 10-foot pools, and filled them with 4,000 pounds of ice. And it was horribly miserable, painful. Like I couldn't make the 2 minutes, not even remotely close to it. And we had other guys that were like in there for 20, 30, 40 minutes, like no problem. So,
but you realize too that after that first minute and a half, it's usually a minute and a half to 2 minutes. That's when everything stops hurting after that. No. It does. It really does. I promise you.
I did this and it does not.
James almost passed out in there. Like it was, yeah.
I'm super cold sensitive. Like,
yeah. Plus it's not fun.
And
So
I pass out from the cold and then I drown because I sink straight to the bottom.
I'm sure there were people that would
and then Jeff takes you back.
Yeah.
I mean, he finally got it. So
maybe they're like, oh, look, James is really getting into it. He's underwater. He's doing he's been under there for 3 minutes. God, he can hold his breath a long time.
He's doing the breathing method. So we talk a little bit about the physical stuff. What do you do for like mental? You've been doing it so if you've been a black belt for 12 years, you've been doing it for like 20 something years.
Yeah, 20.
So like, is the question like burnout or
boredom or other stuff coming up, that schedule problems that people run into where it's like, oh, I can't train and now I'm only coming once a week. You see it with new people. I think it's going to dwindle obviously the more you're doing it, but 20 years of doing the same thing.
And just to preface that just a little bit more, and I was a little bit hurt by it, but Phil didn't tell me whenever he was feeling like he was not into training, he was not, but he was still doing it, consistent and everything, but he didn't tell me until one day on the podcast. I'm like, why haven't you ever told me? I mean, we could figure it out, so that's kind of why I'm interested. Honestly, I haven't hit a lull like that yet in the 2.5 years, but I'm sure I will at some point in time. And my intention is just to train consistently and get through it. But we do want to hear what you guys have to say about that because you have been training a lot longer.
Yeah. So honestly, it's just kind of identifying the issue, right? Like what's the law for? Like, are you bored? Is the class the same as always? Is it something, external? Is it, going through a breakup or, job issues or whatever. So number one, you have to kind of find the source of the problem. I think boredom tends to be, especially for adults, like, it's like you kind of get in that pattern. It's like, well, I've got this pattern of driving to work and then going to work and then coming home and then eating at this time and then going to jiu-jitsu, and it just becomes a part of a pattern, and we get bored with that. So, for me, jiu-jitsu has always been kind of my escape from the daily boredom. But at the same time, once that pattern starts developing, it becomes boring, right? Even though it's not a boring activity, it kind of becomes the same as every day. So I change up my training constantly. Like, I had a guy tell me one time, he goes, "You're the only black belt I know that's game changes every 6 months." Because most guys, by the time they get the black belt, they have their game, and that's fine. Like, everybody should have their game, especially competitors. But, I teach, so I kind of have to be familiar with all the things. So, and I like doing all the things, so I change my game plan up. I mix it up. I start working, different variations of half guard, or, I know some spider guard stuff, but I don't use spider guard a lot. So now I'm going to try that. It becomes more challenging, it becomes more fun, it becomes more problem solving. So it takes the boredom out of it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I do personally, as far as, that training boredom goes, is just kind of change it up. Just keep it moving, keep it going. And then obviously when I have a tournament or something, I focus. Right. So I'm like, okay, I got to stop playing. I got to stop messing around with the white belts now. And, I might've said it before, but like, I always give the like, "Hey, I'm not mad at you" speech, right? Like, if I'm training hard, like, if you roll with me, it's not going to be fun for you. And,
there are definitely comp trainings where I'm like, I'm not rolling with James today. Like, I know that, he's going to murder me. And so it's, just sometimes it's just like, well, okay. I think, talking about the tournament aspect, like, having a goal is a good thing too. Like, that kind of keeps you from getting, burnout, is like a focus on what it is. And it doesn't have to be competing. We talked about it a little bit last night. But we had a girl so it actually started with, the goal was 100 rolls, and a bunch of different women were posting about it. And I was like, let's break this down. Let's do the math, 'cause I want to math everything out. How many times a week do you train? Okay. So if it's 3 days a week or 4 days a week, whatever, how many rounds are you getting per night? Well, you have to get this many if you're going to hit 100 in the month. So I want to math it out so that you don't just come and do 1 or 2 rounds and expect to still make it to 100. So a week in, she was like, I think I can hit 150. And so she upped it to 150, and she did make it. And, she had all these excuses going into it, like thinking that she couldn't train that much. Her kids would get bored at the school, and, what would they have for dinner? 'Cause she wouldn't be making dinner every night and that kind of stuff. Where instead she found out that a lot of that wasn't legit. Like, her kids were great at the school. They started meal prepping. So she was like, I feel so much better because I'm eating better, because we're meal prepping instead of just going out to dinner, and then she was happy. She got to know a lot of her teammates better because she was keeping track of who she was rolling with. So she realized she rolled with her husband mostly. But she would go, hey, I've got to get a 7th round in tonight. Would you roll with me? What's your name? I'm Valerie, So there were lots of benefits to it. And it was just about like having a goal. So then, after that, like, me and one of my training partners and best friend Risser, we were like, we're going to set goals for like how many submissions we want throughout the month. And then once we get through that, we're going to do like, okay, we want this many loop chokes this month. And we're going to focus on like one submission, or, like a couple that are, probably loop choke and Wild West, because that's our combo, and like how many we want that month. So it just kind of makes it fun again. Like, if you're not going, if competition isn't the thing you're going to do in the near future, then it's more about like just setting an interesting goal and seeing, like, how many did you get tonight? How many did you get,
It's kind of funny, because it's sort of what ended up happening. Was, for me, it was just constantly focused on be on top, stay on top, or sweep to get on top.
Yeah.
And just never be in the closed guard anymore. Like, stop it. And just, it's kind of naturally what ended up happening.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You gotta change it up. And I think going in with a game plan, like James talks a lot about game plans, but if you're just going in and just doing jiu-jitsu all the time, then it becomes very much the same thing. But if you go in with a game plan, no matter what that game plan is, it makes it more interesting. You're paying more attention. You're more interested in the results.
How much does she feel she improved after that? Because I heard the podcast, but I don't know if there was an update on it.
Yeah. I think that she I think most of it was in her self-confidence, really. Because she also got her blue belt that month.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool, you know, which was just a thing that she didn't expect. It just, you know, was part of it. But I think most of it was in mental, like that she could do more than she thought she could.
Okay.
And, you know, you guys kind of hit on it, training with purpose. And we constantly on the podcast so that we're kind of held accountable for them, right? We set goals for our training. Like I've been working a lot on half guard. I've been working a lot on back defense, things that kind of go along with my game and trying to get in different positions than the ones I'm normally in. Along those lines, what's something that, let's say, and because of our audience and they're mostly white, blue, people who are learning to do jiu-jitsu and haven't been doing it for a really long time, what's some advice that you could give them for the goal setting and training with purpose?
Yeah, anything?
I mean, I recently went and did privates with every one of my girls. I personally paired them up so that they were kind of close in size or experience or whatever. And then we sat down and we wrote out game plans. And even if they were brand new and all they knew was an Americana and, from side control, you're doing an Americana, and from mount, you're doing an Americana. And, and then if they had questions about things, we ran through what that was. But I think even from a very beginner level, you can still have a game plan of things you want to focus on.
Yeah. The less things you know, the easier it is to focus on them. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Do you usually recommend, if you're coming up with a game plan for somebody who's pretty new, would you go more by body type stuff, or would you encourage them to go after and do what, if they're like, I like this, would you push them towards what they like doing more, or what you think they'll be successful with?
A little bit of both. So normally toward what they like, right? Because they're gonna explore that more just naturally.
Yeah.
But then there's gonna be body type stuff, like if the guy's 300 pounds and 5 feet tall and he wants to do triangles all day long, I'm gonna go, okay, let me see your triangle. Okay, we're not doing that.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the best.
Yeah, that's not the best move for you. Let's wait on that one, right? Because the thing is with your game plan with training, you have to have a level of success or it sucks real bad.
Agreed.
Right?
That's true.
If I know 3 moves and I've never ever hit one of them on anyone ever, and I've been training for 6 months, that's very discouraging. So you've got to have some realistic techniques that so maybe work with the body type, but at the same time they have to want to do it. They have to want to explore it. They have to kind of be drawn to that technique or that position or what have you.
And even be able to recognize it.
Yeah.
Right. So I can't tell somebody that they should be doing a certain technique if they don't see, the arm's right there.
Yeah. That's interesting. We were talking about a similar question with John Plyler, our professor, when he was on. And he said something that I thought was really interesting and I found to be really true, but he was like, you'll find your technique that you want. Like it's going to find you. You don't have to go look for which one you like. It's going to find you and you're going to gravitate towards that and start working from there. And I did that with cross chokes and triangle stuff. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Nice.
So, being multiple school owners now with Endurance and Indiana Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've had the privilege of meeting your students this week. Jen, Dan, all those folks. It's been
Daniel.
It's Daniel.
Yeah.
Don't call him Dan.
I called him Dan.
I know.
I'm not a Dan.
He does not like that.
And it was Doug, right? Because Doug warmed me out last night.
Good. He said you guys had a good roll.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our guy Mac was here too, but he only did half week.
Mac did session A.
Okay, I don't understand that, but listen, we're going to move on from that because
he was sad about it once he got here. He realized.
Of course, everyone's sad about it if they only do one session. If you're going to Origin Immersion Jiu-Jitsu Camp, sign up for the whole week because you're going to regret it if you don't when you get here.
Definitely. And session B sucks because everything's out of stock.
We've already bought
Session A
Pro
buys
Shop
all
out.
the things.
You're right about that.
Man, they kept the Jocko white tea and the Go. They kept it stocked this time though. Like,
Whole
Last
time.
year we drank
Man.
it all before
Session B got
showed up.
none last year.
And we were, speaking of that, we were down doing the ice baths. They have pallets of that downstairs still.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're not going to run
running
out.
out.
Right.
I'm gonna rent a U-Haul and sneak it
You
in
guys are
the middle of the
driving,
night.
right? So one thing that one of your students said that you guys were really good at was how you deal with different personalities and different attitudes in an environment to keep a positive training environment that you guys facilitate. Tell us a little about that.
For me, I'm very much I love you where you are. Like I've always said that's who I am. I had a girl once tell me that, like she was going through a rough time and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not my normal, like bubbly, uplifting self. And I was like, I don't need you to be anything for me. Like, you don't have to be any personality or, whatever for me. I'm going to love you where you are. I'm going to help you improve, but I'm going to love you where you are. So as far as our students go, I really, I push them, of course, but I appreciate where they are, whether they're there for just self-defense or for confidence or they want to compete or it doesn't matter. I'm there for your journey. It's your journey. If you want to change that journey, I'll help you find the way to do that. But that's, I guess, how I personally navigate it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has something going on in their life at any given moment. Like, especially when you have, you get 300 people, very few of those people are 100% happy all day long, every day, all at a given time. So you just have to understand that, like, everyone's going through something at some point and just kind of be there for them. And, Jiu-Jitsu's there for all of us. And
yeah, it's the thing that they're doing for something positive. So, and we come together. It doesn't matter. Like, Jiu-Jitsu is the great equalizer. The mats don't care. The mats don't care what your race or religion or anything like that is. So, we just...
Yeah, it's everyone's in there sharing the love for the same thing. So,
and I always say that Jiu-Jitsu builds trust extremely fast. Like that's how we have such close relationships is because you're going to choke me and I'm going to tap and then you'll let go. So there's like this instant trust that like my life is in your hands and you're going to let go when I ask you to, and we move on, so you get really, really close relationships quickly through Jiu-Jitsu. So that helps too.
I was training with Josh Hanger one time and I was showing him the Von Flue choke and like he tapped and I jokingly was like, nope. This is my chance, and he was like, oh, hey. He's like, hey, like there's like he called it like something like an agreement of trust. Yeah. And he's like, you don't break the agreement of trust in Jiu-Jitsu. He's like, a tap is a tap. And I was like, yeah, obviously like I was joking, but yeah, it was cool to hear that from somebody else. He's like, whoa, like tap means stop. And even day one, like we explain what the tap is to new people. And, we tell them like, even if you think someone tapped, stop.
Right.
Like if you don't know, like maybe their hand got caught, like you have no idea why somebody taps sometimes. Like I had a guy tap last night because his toe got caught in my band.
Yeah.
Right? We're all wearing bracelets at Origin Camp, like the little rubber ones. And I could tell it wasn't my sleeve, but I knew something was going on. But he was just like, stop. And so I just froze. And he's like, can I get that toe out of there? I'm like, yes.
That's why I'm wearing
I
two
took
right
it
now.
off and I threw it at AJ. I was like, get this off of me right now. But yeah, I was like, I was in his guard. Like, obviously I'm not tapping him out. Like, but he tapped and we stopped and then we reset and everything was good.
Yeah. So. And along those lines, we do share our personal space, right? I mean, and there's a lot to, probably not enough credit given to that connection we get with people whenever we're touching them, because we're
right.
Well, if you're a white belt, you might not have all your hands and feet on people, but you should.
Right.
but we're constantly gripping, we're constantly touching, and I think that's something that's very important that most people that don't do jiu-jitsu might not get enough of. And so I think that does build that intimacy and that trust and those, you've all seen the memes, you have a jiu-jitsu shirt on and you're immediately friends, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
did we just become best friends?
right. That's the one. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot to that. And I'm grateful for it in my life for sure.
Coming to Origin Camp, we made friends at the airport. We stopped at Cracker Barrel because we thought we'd eat there. I made a friend there. And then we went to Chipotle. I made 3 friends there because they all had on jiu-jitsu shirts all coming to camp. I'm like, oh, we're friends. Exactly.
So Phil and I were talking whenever we were prepping for this, and something that I'm not good at is
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, well, that. Although I'm going to go here because, folks, I'm going to give you a tip on how to get out of James Clingerman's loop choke, because I've got it perfected.
Oh man, this was really good.
I've got this is. Right? No, it's going to work every time.
Every time.
But you got to first have the setup, right?
I also want to take partial credit for this, and I'll explain why after.
Yeah. So the first part of the equation is he has to have a new gi on.
Okay.
Brand new.
Brand new.
James or someone else?
No.
James.
You don't. It doesn't matter what gi you have on to get out of his loop choke.
This technique works in no gi as long as James is wearing a gi.
Yeah.
Right.
You can be.
Well, I can't loop choke.
Can't
you.
loop
You're
choke
not
from
wearing
you.
I lied. This is why I'm not very good.
Maybe a hoodie.
Phil's not good at loop choke.
We need to work on this.
So the secret technique is that you cut your head shaving the night before, because then whenever he gets you in a loop choke, it scrapes the scab off, and then it gets blood all over his new gi, and he immediately lets go before I was even ready to tap.
That's almost true. So it wasn't the blood on the gi that made me let go. It was the blood spurting from the top of your head all over the mats that made me let go, because I wanted to check on your well-being.
Either way, success on my part.
And last year, when you were showing the Von Flu, it was no gi, and he didn't shave his head, and his stubble was it was just tearing it up. It was just the worst thing he ever has done to me.
He was like, no, the choke's not on, but the stubble on your head is killing my bicep. So, getting back to the question, and that is, I'm really bad. So every time after, our professor, John Plyler, he shares a technique, he says, are there any questions? I don't have any questions because I haven't drilled the move. Right? I mean, like maybe if it's one that I'm familiar with and I want to add something, but I don't think of those things right then.
Yeah.
And then
the technique doesn't fall apart until you try it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then inevitably it's like I get 2 or 3 reps in and I'm like,
Right.
or I'll wait till we reconvene and he, tightens up whatever it is that the detail is that he's seeing everybody do wrong. I have a problem asking thoughtful questions because first off, I don't want to be the guy that's the but what if guy, right? Because there's 7,000 but what ifs. And if you're listening and you're out there and if you're the what if guy, stop it. Or what if girl, don't care. Stop it.
James has a great answer for that, first of all.
So I hate what if questions.
Right.
On a low level, right? On a low level. Like if you know the technique, if you're familiar with the position, then we can go into what ifs. But when I'm showing a brand new person a basic armbar and they say, well, what if he pulls out of it? It's a simple answer. They won't. They never will. And the reason they never will is because you don't know the armbar to go for the armbar in the first place. So you need to learn step 1 and apply step 1 before they're going to defend that, and we can move on to step 2.
That is a great answer. But stop asking what if people.
Yeah.
So on the line of how, because I noticed you asking questions. I noticed you asking questions, AJ. What? Maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm just
Do you think it's just experience?
I do. I really do. Like James spends every now and then we'll do a week of just Q&A, and it's my favorite. Like we just ask whatever questions.
But nobody ever asks questions.
But it's always purple belts and above almost.
Yeah, it's always a higher level.
So
guys.
what I've noticed is at the end of the sparring class, John will line us up and he'll say, what do you have questions with? That's the only time I can really think of questions because I'm like, all right, I got swept 4 times.
Yeah.
The same way, and that's the best time for me to ask a question because it's going to fix what's immediately wrong.
Right.
But a lot of times when I'm getting instruction, they'll show it like 2 or 3 times, and then they're going to explain to me all the things I'm going to mess up, which I promptly do. And then by the time I go to do it, I'm like, I forgot it. I don't remember what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it makes sense that it's hard to ask questions in the moment because you haven't tried it yet. You don't know. But just questions in general, I think often comes with experience, right? It's you start seeing, you don't know what you don't know kind of things when you're younger, or, younger in jiu-jitsu, I guess. But so like as you progress, and people all the time, I'll ask the most questions in class and they're like, you live with him. Like, how do you have the most questions? I'm like, well, and I think keeping a notebook is huge for that. Because if you got swept 4 times that night and you didn't get a chance to ask the question, you take the note on it. Mm-hmm. So then when you do have the chance to ask the question, you can be like, hey, this keeps happening. I keep getting swept. This is what I'm doing. How can I fix it?
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. And it's something that I've got to work on, just personally. Because I benefit from everybody else's questions. Right. I feel like I'm not contributing in that respect, to have a thoughtful question, but I'd rather,
It's also like, it's funny because, I tour with James for all his seminars. And so sometimes my questions are ones that I know the class should be asking, but they're not. Like, just to clarify, are you doing this? I know I've seen it, a million times, but
some of the upper belts, you can tell are doing that with stuff. Yeah. Charlie does that a lot.
Yes, for sure. So next, what is a question that nobody asks you that you feel like they should ask?
Oh man.
We're such open books. I feel like if they're not asking, we're just telling.
That's a good question.
So
it's that question.
Yeah.
It's that question.
That's the question that no one asks.
Thank you, Jen. Best question ever.
Stumped us.
That was hers. But along that same vein of questions, since we've obviously gone off on that pathway, is that what would each of you tell your white belt selves if you had a chance to go back in time?
Well, I'll take it from my regrets, right? So I don't tend to have regrets in life really, but I always say like my 2 biggest regrets, I used to always say my biggest regret was not competing enough as a white belt. I really wish I would have competed more as a white belt. Nobody cares. You know what the outcome is. There's no pressure. It's just go out there and get the experience. And to be honest, I was a white belt for 13 years, so I had plenty of opportunity. That's not true. I mean, I was a white belt for 13 years, but I didn't really train consistently during that time. But I wish I would have competed more as a white. My new regret is more not taking care of myself when I get injured. So, I'll have an injury and be like, it's fine, let's just keep going. Instead of going, okay, I need to take a break. I need to, not train hard. I had herniated a disc in my back and still did like 3 tournaments at Worlds and Origin Camp and everything. I did too much and then ended up a week in bed, not being able to get up. So I think I would tell my white belt self to compete more and to respect my body more.
Listen to your body. Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yeah, that's always good advice. Me personally, I came from the era of Hoist Gracie, right? The no time limit. You can just kind of hang out and chill, and somebody's eventually going to fall into a submission, and you don't have to force anything, and every jiu-jitsu's laid back, and you just go with the flow. And I wish I really would have started in more of a wrestler mindset. I never wrestled or played any other sports before this. So I wish that I would have just been taught like, hey, go smash this guy and just go as hard and fast as you can, right? Which is oddly enough, right? It's the
That's
opposite.
Very interesting.
It's the opposite advice I normally give guys. But for my personality type, because I was always a counter fighter. Even when I kickbox and stuff, I would wait for guys to start punching at me, and then I would slip and I would move and I would try to intercept JKD or whatever. But I was always a counter fighter, and it kind of put me behind. When you're starting as a counter fighter, you're automatically behind. Like the other guy always goes first. And And I wish not necessarily that I would just go hard all the time, but like that I would have kind of had that more aggressive mindset, like get to where you want to be, finish. I
struggle with that a lot, like especially with guard passing. Like I feel like I've had a couple people tell me, like I start to do a guard pass and I have a moment, and then I like reassess or think, and they adjust, and it's gone, and I don't go get it.
I think that goes back to the game plan again too. You know, like
exactly,
because I'm not doing any guard pass. I'm doing my 2 guard passes, and no matter what guard you put me in, I am putting you in the position I want to do my pass. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then, like, I don't have to think about like, okay, I started to go for this one. Is that the one I want? No, let's go for this one. No, is that, you know, like I'm not questioning it in the middle of it. I'm moving to put you in that place so that I can do my pass.
Makes sense. Also, we were wondering, I saw a post that John put up a while back, and I thought it was interesting, so I don't know if you can think of any off the top of your head, but it's just kind of about habits, whether it's training or otherwise, but things you notice and you see, you know, brown belts and black belts doing that white belts, blue belts either don't know to do or don't think to do, and whether it's while drilling or training or whatever, just things they do differently, other than being good at it.
I think they drill with intention. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of new people, they come in, they see the move, and they go, okay, I'm going to do, like, a couple reps of that. I'm going to play with it while, you know, until coach tells us to switch. And then they come in, and they're, like, kind of meandering through the move. And, oh, my hand goes here, okay. And they're putting zero thought into any of it except, like, they're kind of getting the gist of the body movement, but they're not putting themselves in the scenario, right? Whereas, like, when I show a move to a brown belt, he's automatically going, okay, so the guy's trying to choke me, I'm in a tournament, I'm in a fight, whatever, and they're automatically kind of role playing as they go, and so they're putting themselves in a more realistic scenario in their head as they're drilling the move.
On the bottom side too, right? So not necessarily bottom, but like James taught at our women's camp, and there was one move where no one was getting it, and they weren't getting it because the person not doing the move wasn't moving their body right. Like they weren't defending the Kimura. They were just like, well, if you don't defend it, then I can't do this. So both sides of that, not just like drilling it as the, you know, actually drilling, but the person on the bottom that's defending or whatever, moving like a person would move in a match. So not like fighting.
But don't be a dead fish.
Right, don't be a dead fish. Don't just lay there and like, and then also I see a lot where, you know, maybe we're working a pass and then trim back to guard or something like that. And people will do, they'll do the thing one time and then they'll get up and they'll fix their gi and they'll fix their hair or whatever. And then they do it again instead of keeping that constant contact and thinking about drilling from both sides.
Yeah, agreed. And it's something that I find that the more experience that I get with jiu-jitsu, I do what you do. And from early on, Phil and I have always been of this mindset is that whenever it's time to drill the move, I want to make sure that I'm getting the most reps of that move of anyone in the class. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really beneficial to, I'm not going to say accelerate your learning, but the more times you do it, if you do it 10,000 times, if you get in 4 extra reps every time, you're going to be better at that move in a shorter amount of time. Yeah. Right? It's the same amount of reps. It's just a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. I make our guys do math constantly. Like, I'll go, okay, guys, like I want you to count how many reps you get, right? And I won't tell them why. And I'll set the timer for 3 or 4 minutes, whatever it may be. And I'll go, okay, how many reps did you get? And they're like, 4. And I'm like, okay, let me do this move. I want you to count. And I'll do the move. I'm like, how long did that take me? They're like, 3 seconds. And I'm like, okay.
You should have got 60 reps in there.
Right. And that's what I do. I'm like, okay, so 3 seconds. How many of those can you do in 1 minute then? And they're like, 20. Okay. And we went for 4 minutes. So how many should you have gotten?
Yeah.
80. Okay. And you did 4. Like, what's wrong with the scenario here? What are you doing wrong? Like, even with a little transition period, like you should still be at 40 or so. So like people just don't use their time wisely. Right. So we have a term, I actually got it from Hoist Gracie. No barbecuing. right? So no wasting time, no social gathering during class. Don't sit around and talk. When you're told to drill, you drill. And when you're drilling, no dead space. Like you do the move, you do the move, you do the move. Don't do the move. Fix your hair, fix your belt, talk to your friend. Like just do it and do it with intent. But yeah, so the no barbecuing story real quick. I guess I should back that up with a with the story. So 1998, I believe. It was either early 98, late 97. I think it was 98. I was training with Hoist in a seminar. There's probably 100 people in the room. I don't know. A lot. And, he shows a move and he comes over and he's like fixing one of my grips or something. And I had noticed this group of like 6 or 7 guys sitting around chit-chatting, which was super weird to me. Like I came from like Judo and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and done some karate and stuff. And there was none of that ever, And I was like, what are these guys doing? Mm-hmm. And so I'm drilling my move and Hoist kind of stops. He's like, hold on, James. And he walks over and he like stands over these guys and they're just talking. Like they don't even acknowledge him. And he goes, guys! And they're all like, oh! And, you kind of like scared them. And he says, what are you doing? Looks like you're having a barbecue. Train. And I just, I was in earshot and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
So like, on our list of rules, it says no barbecuing.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think competition too can help with that. Like I had a girl, Jordan, compete at Worlds, and she came to me afterwards and she was like, jiu-jitsu is no longer a social hour for me. I'm ready to like take it seriously. And she's been training 2 years. Maybe?
Yeah. Just got her blue belt.
Yeah. So it was just cool. Like then seeing the bigger picture, she had this realization of like, okay, probably I've been talking too much, been goofing off too much. It's time to train.
And I think your whole approach to competing, I really like it, and that you encourage it a lot. I compete anyway. Like I can't play video games if I'm not beating or trying to beat another person. I'm not interested.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm already drawn to that naturally, but I think your points of saying, if you train for self-defense, and if you guys want to talk about that, I think that's all great because I think it's super true. I mean, yeah, maybe not everything is legal and you can't punch the guy in the face, but at the same time, like I've never had an adrenaline reaction like my first competition,
exactly,
which has improved a lot. So yeah, I really like your guys' approach to competing. Like, and that's specifically why I asked you the question, because I know you don't, but when you were talking to somebody and they're just dead set against not competing, we kind of all can figure why, but I'm like, do you care if people win?
I think it was really impressive. I think we talked that guy into competing last night.
Yeah, if you remember, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to compete."
Yeah,
and just to set up what we were just talking about, it was one of the grapplers here at camp, and he was stuck. He was asking about promotion. He's a 4-stripe blue belt, and James, I'd love for you to go into those 6 pillars because I think that was really enlightening. And listen, folks, the real answer is, don't worry about the belt. It's a piece of cloth that holds your gi together. I mean, it's going to come. I think we've seen enough people around enough time to know that if you just keep training consistently, those things will come. But what people are looking for, and every professor's different. I mean, right? There's a lot of similarities, in all this. And crazy enough, it seems to work. It seems like whenever you're rolling with somebody, what they are,
Yeah.
And so if you would just talk a little bit about those 6 pillars.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody always asks, like, what do you look for in promotion? And I tell them, so I've got 4 main pillars and then kind of 2 like secondary pillars, I guess. And it's pretty simple. It's level of knowledge. How well do you know the technique? How many techniques do you know? Time in. How well do you roll with your peers in class? And how well do you compete? So if one of those pillars is weak, the other 3 need to be stronger. And what I was telling that guy, and as soon as I said, how well do you compete? He was like, oh, yeah! And he started like groaning and making all these noises. And he's like, basically was like, I would never be your student. And yeah, not that he said that, but that was kind of the attitude. And I was like, hold on, like, give me a minute. So it's almost always competition that is either the weak pillar or it's the strong pillar, right? You have some guys that they're not super technical, but they're monsters on the mat. They move well, they crush. Maybe they came from a wrestling or a judo background. And so if you're out there and you're winning blue belt worlds and other tournaments. So that's also another thing. I don't look at like like if you win worlds, that's awesome. That's a tournament. Can you also win the local tournament? Can you also win this other tournament? So just because something's worlds doesn't make it like the end all be all, right? We've got guys, my guy Joel, he's a 6-time world champion, and he's been tapped out at our local tournament so many times. It's not, and he's just like, what in the world? And it's like, well, this small local tournament, that is some guys' worlds. It's the only tournament they get to do. Mm-hmm. So they train like it's, Abu Dhabi when it's, the ego in Indiana,
Right.
But so it's always that tournament thing that's either really strong or really weak. But, if you don't compete at all, or maybe you just don't compete well, then the other 3 have to be stronger. It might take you a little bit longer. Your level of knowledge should be a little bit higher, right? If you don't roll well, we've got guys that are 60s. They're not in their start when they're 60s. I don't expect those guys to be able to roll well. But what I do expect, I expect them to be able to show a new person how to do the moves. I expect their level of understanding of the technique to be pretty high before they move on to that next belt. And it's going to take them a little longer naturally, right? So 5 and 6, 5, I kind of added, honestly, as I started getting older, because I realized I'm not going to be able to stay healthy forever. Like there's going to be a point where I peak and then everything's downhill from there. And so it's continual improvement, right? So that might be physical, that might be emotional, that might be, it definitely is technique. Like if you're doing jiu-jitsu, your jiu-jitsu should be getting better in some aspect. Now it might slow down. Obviously, like when I was a white belt and knew nothing, my first 6 months, it was like my jiu-jitsu skyrocketed, right? And there's always peaks and valleys, but now that I'm a black belt, I'm fairly good at jiu-jitsu. My jiu-jitsu, like there's not going to be a lot of like skyrocket moments for me. There's not going to be a lot of like giant climbs in my skill level. Most of the time it's me getting older and weaker and going downhill.
But continual improvement.
Yeah. But I can, so what can I do, right? Me personally, I can sharpen my understanding of the things I already know. I can continue to learn new techniques. I can continue to learn how to teach better, how to get my message across better, how to work with different body types. I can just get a better understanding of how to work a room. And, by going out teaching seminars, teaching class, like I know most other, like not most, but a lot of other black belts that own academies don't teach at their own academies. They have blue and purple belts do it. Like I teach almost every single jiu-jitsu class at my academy, morning and night. So because that's what I'm doing, that's what I want to get better at doing. So
yeah, no, I think those are great.
Sixth pillar. He didn't give the 6th one.
Oh, don't be a douchebag.
Yeah.
Moral compass.
Moral compass. Super important pillar. So guys, thanks again. This is the 3rd time for each of you. You're on episode 7 together, episode 37 with Beauty and the Gi, co-streaming. That was AJ and Jen. By the way, if you guys out there haven't heard of Beauty and the Gi podcast, go and download it and share it with your friends, just like you would the BJJ campaign podcast. And then James, you were on the recent episode. Yeah. That's right, a little cameo.
I forced myself in.
A little cameo.
I like it.
Door was locked and everything. I was like, "Let me in."
And you guys have Indiana Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Endurance BJJ.
Yes.
In what?
They're both in the Indianapolis area.
Both in Indiana.
Greenwood and Zionsville, Indiana.
And AJ, you run an all women's camp?
I do. We've run 6 camps up to now. We have our 7th one, May 1st through the 3rd, 2020. That's hard to say. 2020. We have some really amazing instructors coming in that have not been announced yet, but will soon be announced on Beauty and the Gi.
Huge.
Wait, you can't give an exclusive BJJ campaign announcement of one of them?
No.
Man.
One?
James said no. What I will say is that Rachel Casillas will be back. She's taught at all 6 of my camps previous. She's a world champion, pan champion, multiple times. So she'll be back. But then we have some really, really big names coming in too. But yeah, so we'll open up registration for that fairly soon.
Yep.
on the Fight Hub.
We had Emily Kwok at this most recent one, had 160 girls.
Yeah, 160 women there.
We had to shut registration. We shut registration down at 60, and then at 70, and then at 80, and then we were like, okay, we have to move locations. And so we opened it up, and we were like, okay, we got to cap it at 160, and we hit it sold out so fast. It was awesome.
Are you thinking about expanding it, or are you still going to do 160?
Yes.
Nope, we're already in talks with a bigger place, getting that all finalized, and so I think probably we'll hit 220 is what we'll have to cap it at for this one.
So folks, if get in on that early registration,
for sure.
And there's going to be a code, BJJ campaign podcast code. It won't get you anything, but you can put it in anyway.
We'll see what it can get you. Maybe that can be that. But yeah, so May 1st through the 3rd, and that's Role Model, like ROLL. And it's a Role Model women's only grappling camp. So
excellent.
And there's nothing better than jiu-jitsu camp.
Nothing.
100%.
Yeah.
Anything else, James, for you?
Nope. Got a couple DVDs coming out. So we also own the Fight Hub. So we produce some DVDs. I've got some of my own. And then we've worked with like Josh Hinger, Chris Woodmansey, Tom McMahon, Marcelo Cohen, Tim Sled. So we've done some DVDs with some other guys. We've got one with Chris Noonan coming out. I'm actually pretty excited about the Cararina, the small chair. What is it? Small chair, little chair. That's what it means. But it's kind of something exciting. We've got another one that we've already filmed with Marcelo Cohen. We've got a dual disc that we filmed with Christian Woodmansey. I just filmed a high collar passing DVD, so I've got a lot of editing to do. And then we are, after Origin Camp, we're going to drive down to Boston, where Christian and I are actually filming another DVD for BJJ Fanatics, and then I will be filming a shin across stomach sweep system DVD for BJJ Fanatics.
You guys are busy.
Yes.
Phil, tell the audience how they can help support us if they choose to.
BJJCampaignPodcast.com, t-shirts, patches, and then the Facebook group on Facebook.com/BJJ Campaign Podcast. And if you have to ask to join the group, just send me or Jeff a friend request and we'll get you in.
Also, Instagram, BJJ Campaign Podcast. We're posting plenty of pictures on there from this week's Origin Immersion camp. And
you'll also see blood spurting out of Jeff's head.
True story. And on James' ski. And if you're not out there doing something each and every day to make yourself better, get out there and do it. Phil, AJ, James, myself, we all choose Jiu-Jitsu. We hope you do too.
I'm about to feed him to the sharks right now. Get him hype right now. Yeah. You know the ground is up. Yeah. Everybody that trains, you know the game. Yeah. So let's get it. Slap it up, bump it and roll. Hey. Yeah, that's the way that it goes. Ain't no better way to better yourself in this game. You're feeling the growth. That's time on the mat. We put in the work. Believe it ain't easy, I know. But we train for the love of the game, the love of the art. Now slap it up, bump it, let's roll.